My name is Brad Chiappetta with Gray Noise, and in this session, I'm going to be doing a basic review of the Gray Noise integration with Maltego. Uh, For those that are familiar with Maltego, we want to call out that there are two transform sets that are available. There is a Gray Noise Enterprise and a Gray Noise Community version of the transforms. For those that are using the Maltego Community Edition, you will only have access to the Gray Noise Community transform. The Gray Noise Enterprise transform does require a paid version of the Maltego product. All right, so in addition to that information, we want to go ahead and just review the general details of what each of these has. You can see for the community edition, there are some basic data allowances that are identified here. And you can reach out to Maltego for more information there. But this transform includes just a simple lookup using the Gray Noise Community API. And so you can use it with your Gray Noise Community API key to go ahead and get access to an increased number of lookups for that one. The Gray Noise Enterprise transform includes access to the more comprehensive paid APIs that Gray Noise offers, including access to our noise context endpoint, our riot lookups, and some basic query endpoints as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and dive right in. I'm just going to open up a new graph here and show some of the basic functionality of what we're able to do with the transform. So being that Gray Noise is largely IPv4 based, we're going to go ahead and add an IPv4 entity here. I'm just going to go ahead and update the value here from the default one here. All right, once we've included that, I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and I'm going to back out. And I'm first going to show the Gray Noise Community transform. This is a very simple IP lookup that is pulling back all of the data from the community API and sort of presenting that to the user here on the graph. So you can see in this case, we're pulling back a classification and whether or not it is internet noise. If this IP address was in our Riot data set, so let's go ahead and give another example here. So we'll pull another entity on. We'll go ahead and enter something along the lines of quad 8, and we'll pass that through to the community endpoint as well. We'll pull that data back and we'll see what that looks like. So not only do we get the classification, we also get this notification that says, hey, this is a common business service IP address, which means it's part of the Riot data set. And then you also get an indicator of who that provider is. So in this case, it's a Google Public DNS IP address. There's also some data over here that's included in the detail view, include a link out to the Gray Noise Gray Noise visualizer, so you can see that data on our visualizer. And then we've captured some of the additional details here. And for those IP addresses that Gray Noise does not know anything about, we'll go ahead and just do this default IP address here. What you should get back here is just the simple response that indicates that this IP address is not noise, which means that we have no information on this. It's not in either of our data sets. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just open up another graph. And now we're going to go do sort of this same exercise, but this time we'll go ahead and we'll begin looking at the actual full paid APIs in the backend. All right, so these are going to require you to have a full Gray Noise API key. When you're setting up the transform, you'll be prompted for that the first time that you use it. And then once you have that enabled, you'll be able to go and use the Gray Noise Enterprise here, set here. And you have a couple of different options. All right, so in many cases, you're going to use to all details, which is going to pull in the most comprehensive response from the transform. And that's going to give you everything that we have on this IP address, including classification, the fact that it's noise, if we have the ASN information, if we have actor or location information, and then our tags and associated ports that are being scanned for by that particular IP address. So a couple of the different places that you can pivot. So you can pivot from a tag here, and you now have the ability to find all of the IP address that Gray Noise have seen scanning with the same tag. This is going to open up some additional inputs that are required for this. By default, we sort of recommend that you just use the today option, but you can look back a little bit further. And then if you wanted to filter and say, hey, I'm curious about this behavior on a specific port or coming from a specific AN or coming from a specific actor, you can go ahead and include that information, and that will be part of the query that is passed along. But when you go ahead and run this, this will go ahead and it'll pull back all of the associated IP addresses that we have for this particular tag. And if we sort of scroll down and navigate here, we can then see what's available from this. And then if we wanted to, we can go ahead and select all of these and then say we want to go ahead and pull all of the details back on these as well. And we can sort of expand out the graph to see all of the different relationships between these IP addresses. And then again, Maltego allows you to transform these. And so you can see sort of that correlated information between all of the different ASNs, the different locations, all of the different actors, and you can see where the overlap is. And you can see, again, a correlation back to all of our different classifications and whether or not they're internet noise or not and what tag they belong to. I'm going to go ahead and open up another graph here and give you an example of a couple of the other ways that you can do IP lookups. So I'm going to use our Quad 8 example here to do a Riot lookup. So if I do an IP Riot lookup here, this is going to go ahead and hit the Riot API and pull anything in here that we might know about this, showing that it is a common business service. So in this case, we're confirming, yes, this IP address is part of Riot. It's a common business service. We're also giving it a Riot classification and saying, in this case, this is equivalent to a trust level 1, which means that you can reasonably ignore any activity going on here. And then this is going to give you the indication of who owns this IP address, so you can understand sort of the information that we provided with additional context. So in this case, this IP address is owned and operated as part of the Google Public DNS project. So if we go ahead and clear that out, we'll go ahead and dig into some of the additional ways and some of the more simplified data that you can pull back in through the transforms. So I'm going to pull in a known IP address here, and then you'll see some of the other information that we have. I can go and say, you know what, I want just the actor information if it's available. So in this particular case, I'm going to run this one. This one probably doesn't have an actor associated with it, so it'll go ahead and complete, but not return anything back to the graph here. I can say, hey, let me get organization information. Again, if it exists, we'll see what that is, and it'll get associated here. So in this case, we do have organization. I can come and say, hey, is this one known to be scanning for any CVEs? And it's going to go ahead and run that. And if it is, it's going to go and include those associated CVEs on the graph as well. So no CVEs on this particular one. So if we then say, hey, what ports is this one scanning on? I want to just focus on which ports it's known to be scanning on right now. And we wait for that to finish. And we can see that there is the ability for, you can see that there is one port being scanned for by that particular IP address. All right, so from there, we're going to then take a look and see if there are any tags associated with this one. So we do that, and we see that there is an associated tag as well. And so you can sort of build each one of those components independently. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another IP address here so that we can see a couple of the other examples. All right, so we're going to go ahead and clear this graph. We're going to add another IP address. All right, and then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my actor lookup again so that we can see that this is working. Okay, fantastic. So we can see that this is a shodan.io address. And then also, we want to see our CVEs working. So we're going to say, hey, go ahead and give me the ability to scan for, let me see if this IP address is scanning for any particular CVEs. And in this case, you can see the variety of CVEs that it is in fact looking for and scanning for as part of its behavior. You can pivot by CVEs as well. So if you want to go in and say, let me see all of the IP addresses that are also scanning for this, we can pop that up. And then again, we have the additional inputs that you can put in here. Again, I do recommend that from the timestamp, you just mostly focus on what's happening today. And then again, you can see if there's anything else in here. So in this particular case, say we just want to stay focused on Shodan and see who else, what other IP addresses from Shodan are going and actually looking for these. So we're going to pivot from there and see what other IP addresses we get returned today. Okay, and we can see that here is a variety of other IP addresses. And if we want to confirm, we can go ahead and do that actor lookup and say, are these actually all associated with Shodan? They should be, but we'll go ahead and confirm that the logic is all working correctly here. And we can see now that we get all those associations back. So here's a variety of Shodan IPs that are all actively scanning today and are all actively looking for this particular CVE today. Okay, now you also have the ability to go ahead and pivot based on a tag. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in a particular tag here. So we'll take a look and see what tags this IP address is scanning for. And then once those load, we can see sort of the variety of different things that it has. So we can see which one of these might be interested to what we're looking for. So in this particular case, let's go ahead and just use this Triton one here. And we're going to go ahead and see what other scanning IP addresses are also looking for this one. And we're going to go ahead and use the same filters we used previously. And we're going to run that and wait for that to complete. And since this is Shodan, it's likely that some of these will tie back to some of the IP addresses that we have on the graph already, and we'll see what happens. Or we've got no additional scanning behavior with this particular tag. So that was not a great one to use. Oh, there we go. Or just taking a very long time. So you can see all of the additional IP addresses here that it has added to show that are specifically looking for this tag. So again, you can see sort of the full variety of what is happening there. Right. And that sort of covers the majority of the functionality of what the transform has to offer. So again, we'll just sort of run through that one more time just to reiterate everything. So we have the ability to take an IP address to check it against Riot, and then to pull in all the details that we have from the noise database. We can also go ahead and pull in specifically just its actor, organization, CVEs, ports, or tags, and then all those different pivot points. So again, we can pivot from a tag. We can pivot from a CVE. We can go ahead and we can pivot from an actor as well. So somewhere I have my actor tag on here. That wound up way over here. So here's our actor tag as well. So we can go ahead and pivot by that as well. So a whole bunch of different places that you can pivot within the transform graph and pull in all that corresponding data from Gray Noise. That covers everything that we wanted to show through the integration today. If there are any further questions or any clarifications, or if you have any enhancements or thoughts of the way that we can make this better and easier to use for you, we're always willing to hear your feedback. So feel free to reach out to us on our community Slack, or go ahead and email us at support@graynoise.io.